All right. Welcome everyone to the first edition of SDG Action Conclave 2020, and we are conducting today's session focusing on SDG Goal 14, that's Life Below Water. Let me start off by telling you a bit about our organization, Youth Forum, under Alexis. A Youth Forum is a project under Alexis Society, and our team consists of inspired young students and professionals who are solely interested in creating positive social impact by conducting research on policy issues, writing insight blogs, designing creative social campaigns, organizing life-changing events, and interviewing leaders and change makers. As it is correctly said, the youth are not only leaders of tomorrow, but also partners of today. So, we at Youth Forum, a team of creative and encouraging individuals, work with a shared mission, a mission to change the world. So, today, this first edition of SDG Action Conclave, we wish to bring together the change makers and leaders from around the globe under the hashtag Act for SDGs, Campaign Week of the United Nations. It will help prepare an actionable agenda that will aid in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. While the world leaders meet virtually at the United Nations General Assembly to discuss issues and give solutions to tough times, we are trying to do our bit by taking action, raising awareness, and taking initiation for a better direction ahead. The turning point of the planet and the people needs to be now. So first of all, let me introduce the speaker, Laura Muranaka. So Laura Muranaka is the co-founder of WethePlanet and Oranda Ventures. She's on a mission to protect all life on planet. WethePlanet was co-created by Laura Muranaka as a global platform and a campaign for creating intergenerational impact to unite elders and youth together. Through WethePlanet, Muranaka hopes to challenge the world and reimagine a better approach to planet, people, peace, prosperity, and partnership to protect all life on planet and safeguard cities and nations from the negative effects of climate change. With over 13 years of experience, Muranaka has written, created, strategized, and enacted change with the best minds in the world. In building global movements at the United Nations General Assembly in New York, Muranaka has played life undersea at the forefront of our work. Muranaka was selected for the inaugural international event of Economia Francisco, held with initiation by Pope Francis and Vatican in order to reimagine the world's approach to planet, people, peace, prosperity, and partnership. Together with Nobel laureates such as Mohammad Yunus and Pulitzer Prize-winning authors like Nick Kristof of the New York Times, she is on a mission to unite world leaders, visionaries, and entrepreneurs to imagine how science, innovation, and technology can protect all species. Welcome, ma'am, to the session, and we are very happy to have such a change maker here with us today. So now let me introduce the chair of the session today. Kunal is the co-founder of GameSpace, a gamification company which uses quizzes and other games as a tool for personal growth and people engagement. And he has also founded citybitesindia.com, a travel portal which helps travel and book inspiring city experiences by local experts. Currently, he's on a mission to teach curiosity as a life skill, increase awareness about sustainability, and empower Indians to be more than they thought they could be. So let's take forward this discussion while trying to arrive at solutions through this session on SDG number 14. I would like to hand over the of the session now over to Kunal sir. Sir?
Thank you, Savitri, and a very warm welcome to each and every one of you who is joining in and listening in for today's session. I have a very, very special guest with me, and I have the beautiful and brilliant Laura Muranaka. Laura, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here today and to share with your audience all about SDG 14.
Laura, your story was so inspiring. When I was reading about you and I was learning about you, it's such an inspirational story, I have to tell you. And as a change maker, you have launched We the Planet, focusing on environmental well-being. Stakeholders from a variety of backgrounds, world leaders, activists, popular celebrities, are gathered to make significant calls on making the planet we live in a better world. Uh, can you tell us what strives you for action? What is this that drives you towards action?
Yes. So I serve as co founder of We the Planet, and it's a very special initiative that we launched at the United Nations in 2019 to unite youth and elders, the left and the right, really bringing all people together to protect all life on the planet. A lot of times when I'm talking with prime ministers, political leaders, people who are writing incredible books, people who are scientists, researchers, and global health experts, we always put the lens on humanity first. And it's time to really shift the narrative, to go beyond just me or my company, my endeavor, and look at how we can build unity between people that have incredible ideas, which are usually the youth, and the elders who bring their resources and wealth of knowledge to the table to protect all species on the planet. In all the work that I do and the inspiration that I get, it comes from life under the sea. And that's why SDG 14 means so much, because in my writing, in policy work, in communicating and sharing ideas with some of the best entrepreneurs on the planet, people are starting to realize at this moment in time, for really the future of humanity, we have to look at the biodiversity of our oceans, life on land, to really find solutions to our global grand challenges.
One of the things you mentioned is the old and the new. And I think this has been a central focus for your organization as well, that intergenerational cooperation. So I wanted to understand from you that what is this concept and why is it so important, or how did it even come to you?
Wonderful. So, your audience might have heard the phrase "we the people." And we the people is how a lot of people go about things in our world. And it's important to realize that it's time to unite all generations in action for a better future. Because if we don't come together to share best practices, share resources, and collaborate, it's going to be the same thing that human beings have been doing for the last 50 years.
Thank you. That sounds really cool that you are bringing people together from all walks of life and of all ages, and together we can, right? So it's great to hear that. Since our focus goal is SDG 14, and marine ecosystem has been facing several man-made threats due to garbage dumping and over-exploiting animal and plant resources and so on. As if this is not enough, several cases of oil spilling has been recently making headlines, right? For example, the Brazil oil spill in 2019, the Mauritius oil spill in 2020, and of course, even the Arctic oil spill that happened near Russia. Now, one of the things that if you take the recent example, of course, the Mauritius oil spill, which is happened near the Blue Bay Marine Reserve Park, which is a wetland of national importance. And so my question to you is that it has led to a lot of protests from citizens calling for inadequacy of the government approach in mitigating the disaster. So how do you think these disasters like these can be avoided, and how do we bring more global collaborations to mitigate and manage these environmental disasters?
The oil spill in Mauritius and surrounding waters was really a tragedy. But the upside was looking at how local people on the ground used the resources that were at hand and natural and sustainable to contain the oil. One of the best things people of Mauritius did, it was right after they harvested sugarcane. So that production was happening in June. In August, when the oil spill happened, the government recognized that there was a lot of natural debris from harvesting sugarcane that could be put on the oceans to create booms to control the oil so that it did not reach the mangroves and the coastal seabeds, where it would be incredibly difficult to clean, because once the oil reaches birds and coats their feathers and infests the seabed and affects birds that are laying eggs, species that are very, very susceptible to all of the toxins from the oil spill, it would have been a much more severe disaster if people on the ground had not acted quickly. And really, it was an example of where international governments can do something good for the planet after this human blunder. France and President Macron sent some of their best marine biologists and scientists to study the coastal seabeds immediately after the oil spilled. And that was a good proactive action so that it did not cause more harm to the biodiversity.
To me, it seems, as you said, the answer was there in the nature itself. We had to take it from the nature and then put it back to the nature. And nature said that, look, I have already solved the problem for you. You just need to come together and do it for us, right? So, it's wonderful, the couple of examples that you've given us, how cooperations have happened in recent times. And but the matter of the fact remains that we keep dumping things in the ocean, and the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, one of the earliest discovered patches, is of such a magnitude that it amounts up to sizes of France, Germany, and Spain put together. And these massive vortices, sometimes called plastic islands, are known as the 5 continents of shame, because we have about 5 of them. And many of them consist microplastics, of course, and which is causing more and more harm to sea creatures than possibly is visible to our naked eye. So my question to you is, that why do you think it has escalated to such a magnitude? I mean, didn't we already know that we were doing this and we could not curb it in time? And of course, the subsequent question would be that, what do we have to do to solve it?
You are right that nature offers a lot of the best solutions on our planet. I think being so pressed for time globally, every culture, they're feeling the pressures of time to commute to work, to try to be an entrepreneur, to try to be a venture capitalist, to try to be a young person making a change in the world. And especially before coronavirus, people were traveling internationally all of the time. If I got an invitation from you, my first instinct might be to fly to India, to meet in person, to have a summit. And it's wonderful. We'd get to know each other, we'd have a conversation, but we're having a conversation right now that's important, that can reach an audience of young people, elders, really all generations. And it's this duality. I'm in New York City, and every day still I see people buying a bottle of water on the street, drinking it as they walk 4 blocks, and then they throw it in the garbage. And it's a human behavior that has not changed but needs to change drastically. As you said, these 5 continents of shame in our oceans, it's a ticking time bomb. And really, until we change our behaviors of what we buy, what we consume, the continents of shame are going to keep growing. And one blessing of this time has been the chance for people to be at home more by necessity. They're not flying as much. They're not driving across the country to go to a conference, to see friends who live in another city. And just by virtue of staying in your own home, you can cook for yourself. You can eat out of glass cups and real plates and metal spoons, and you're not buying so many things in takeaway containers that are plastic that contributes to the problem.
As they say, sustainability begins at home. So that's a very good example that you gave us, that since now, the home in a way has become world for many. You should focus on making our home more sustainable. That way, if billion of us do it, we will already have contributed a lot towards sustainability. Now, I won't only talk about negative things. Let's look at the positive side as well, that we have recently witnessed. Right, the natural environment was given a break from us, and see the wonders that has happened during the pandemic. Even though the world has turned upside down, it has toppled businesses, lifestyles, and economy of countries. But we also had clearer skies due to decreased air pollution, clearer waterways in Venice due to decreased vessels in water, and it is predicted that the world fishing industry could sort of benefit out of this. So my question is that, there are these vivid images that we saw, that sometimes there's animals coming out from their natural habitat and on the roads, and then, sort of dolphins here and there and jellyfishes here and there around the world. People have, shown pictures and things like that. So my question is, in a post-pandemic world, how do you think we should pursue and maintain the positive environment impacts that has been achieved during the pandemic time, right? Because we gave it a break, so the nature decided to flourish. But now, if we go back to normal, I don't know what will happen. I mean, it will just. So, what are your viewpoints on that?
I always think about something I learned when I visited France. And it's that 91% of plastic is never recycled. So if we don't produce the plastic in the first place, that's the greatest change human beings can make. And as people start going back to school, going back into the office environment in the coming months, I think really, really look at what you're buying, and look at what people who sit in the cubicle, the office next to you, look at what they're buying at lunch. It can be as simple as a takeout box that's paper, and you think, okay, fine, it's paper, it'll decompose over time, not as bad as plastic. But there's such a thing called greenwashing. And a lot of companies put a leaf on the paper cup, on the box, and it's a psychological thing. It's a marketing tool. You think that you're buying something good for the planet, but if it's coated in PLA, that's a plastic. It is a plastic that makes the paper box with a very pretty leaf almost as bad as a totally 100% plastic container. This is where I think it's important that schools really, really spend time in the curriculum and can do it in a fun way, an interactive way, because little kids notice everything. Children realize things that a lot of adults are too busy going about daily life, trying to feed their family, trying to do all the demands of their job, being an entrepreneur, a teacher, a doctor, whatever the parent's career may be. And so, if you teach kids from 5 years of age all the way through school, incorporate it into the curriculum, and really help them help their parents. This is where youth have incredible energy to really point out the things that we all consume and find alternatives that are better for the planet and can protect all life on land and under the sea.
That's so wonderful, and to me it sums up like hashtag curiosity for good. You just instill curiosity in younger children, and that sometimes actually does the magic, because they just start asking questions about everything that they see around it, and they might just ask, why is this plastic layer here? I mean, why haven't we replaced it that way? And that's some really good suggestion. I think it's whoever, all the entrepreneurs who are listening in, that's right there. That's a problem for you to solve. Thank you, Laura, for that. Uh, you know, as you said rightfully, I think everything that we discussed so far is more like, it seems like humans are the problem, right? We are at the center of it, and in most cases, we tend to do things. I mean, we tend to do wrong first, and then we try to right it, right? So one example, of course, that comes to my mind is that approximately 75% of coral reefs worldwide are currently threatened by a combination of local and global stressors. Coral reefs are of very vital importance to the world biodiversity. For all those who you don't know, that they act as a medicinal cabinet, and they help protect coastal areas of ocean currents, while providing them with food, and give life to economy of coastal communities. Uh, in recent times, I've seen there are a lot of places restoration of damaged reef ecosystems are being carried out, especially in Asia and lots of parts, I know, because I scuba dive myself at times. So my question to you is, can you tell us more about the conservation and restoration of the coral reefs and some of the success stories that you know of? Maybe that could be a positive inspiration for people who are listening in.
Definitely, Hawaii is one of the success stories for coral reefs through something called the Coral Restoration Nursery. It's a group, really, of people, lots of marine biologists from the University of Hawaii, who have teamed up with entrepreneurs, surfers, scuba divers, the people that actually have a personal connection to the oceans, who spend a lot of time underwater, and over time noticed something unique about Hawaii. There are over 70 types of coral that occur naturally in all the waters around the Hawaiian Islands. And many of these types of corals are slow growing. So even if it's the same species that lives off the coast of Florida or off the coast of Mauritius, in the Hawaiian waters, the environment is different, the ocean patterns are different, and it can grow up to 7 times slower than it would in other parts of the world. And that's what makes it so devastating when people damage the coral through boating, fishing, large marine vessels, or people that go out and illegally harvest coral to sell it for jewelry or to sell it in aquarium shops for people to take home and put in their own aquariums. Never a good idea. You can't replicate the ocean. Leave it in nature. And that's always the best solution. Prevention really is the key. But the Coral Restoration Nursery is such a success story because they found a way to sort of transplant and regrow coral that is naturally slow growing in a way that it can survive and flourish. And there's 2 islands. One is called Molokai, the other is Lanai. These are the places that have less tourism, less human movement in the oceans. And what they've done in the past 18 years has been phenomenal. If you go diving now, you will really see the vibrancy come back in a short amount of time, really less than 2 decades, for this very slow growing coral that can only grow 1 to 2 centimeters a year. And when the color comes back, so these are vibrant blues and reds and orange coral that's flourishing now, you really see life come back to the reefs. You see dolphins and turtles and a lot of fish that hadn't been spotted in decades. And it all helps. I think every species contributes to the life of another species, because when the coral is beautiful on the outside, it's healthy on the inside. And if people learn to really respect the oceans and the waterways, it only helps ourselves. Ocean biodiversity helps human beings. It helps a lot of people, especially in tropical cities all across the planet, who rely on tourism, rely on having the beauty to encourage people to go diving in their part of the world, but really to do it in a sustainable way that preserves all the natural beauty of our oceans.
I think it's so well put. Everything that we are going to do, the way we are going to interact with nature, we have to think sustainably in every action that we take. Only then, we can see nature at its best. And who doesn't want to do that? On that note, I will come to one of the sub-targets of this goal, which is about sustainable use of marine resources. And the fisheries industry is met with the challenge of feeding 9 billion people by 2050. The growing demand for fish globally will only be exponential, whereas the supply will only dwindle with over-exploitation of resources. And if I'm not wrong, countries such as Norway has already introduced and operated policy options like sustainable Norwegian aquaculture industry and so on. So I want to know, what are your thoughts on these, and is the world on right path towards sustainable utilization of marine resources? If not, then how do we do that?
There's definitely a lot more that we can do to improve the fisheries industry. 3 billion people depend on the biodiversity of marine oceanways. It's either through direct fishing, through canning, through all of the industries that go from it, also the people that are relying on there being enough fish in the future, because a lot of small fishing communities pass the work down from generation to generation. And it's really at the point where there's not going to be enough in the oceans for it to be a livelihood for anyone in the very near future. Technology can play a part here. If we reduce bycatch from commercial fishing, that's one step in the right direction. There's something called a TED, Turtle Excluder Device, and it is on the big ships with huge nets. Really, turtles don't have any chance of escaping when it's such a huge trawler. But with the TED device, it's a way that they can slip out of the net. They're not caught, they're not killed, they're not brought up to the surface and put on a boat. And it's one way that a group of entrepreneurs are helping to reduce the bycatch situation. The other thing is accurately reporting what comes into the nets. There's a lot of variation. Some fishing companies catch and throw away as much as they keep and sell. And that is a tragedy for everybody involved. So I think the best thing that we can really do to revolutionize the industry, to make it sustainable, to protect dolphins, turtles, octopus, a lot of intelligent species that can do so much more in the ocean where they belong than just being caught by accident and really devalued. They have such a great value when they're alive and they're in the oceans. And that's what we really need to teach kids. Again, if kids don't consume food that is harvested in unsustainable ways, over time practices shift. And I really think all the initiatives that incorporate entrepreneurs and teachers to really present complex messages in a simple way, it's the best way to change human behavior and make the next generation better.
Wow, that's really amazing to hear. I think as you said, I think going back, it looks like education is going to be a key driver for any change that we want to make happen. And as you said, how do we make these complex issues more interesting and engaging for younger kids to consume and learn and grow at the same time with that same message, so that they can then instill it as a habit in life, and that will probably propel the change forward. So thank you so much on that suggestion. And now I will go to one thing that caught my attention in your bio. And it says that you were selected for the inaugural international event of Economy of Francesco by Pope Francis and the Vatican to reimagine the world's approach to the planet, people, peace, prosperity, and partnership. We are very happy to have such a change maker here with us. And I would love to hear your thoughts on sustainable economic development and how it can be applied to the conservation of life below water.
Pope Francis really is a visionary of our time. He's a person that I admire tremendously, and he had the idea to get the Vatican, for the first time in history, to really have a conversation with young entrepreneurs and change makers. And very, very honored that We the Planet was selected to be part of Pope Francis's Economy of Francesco, which is a very, very special group of individuals from 110 nations who are really presenting solutions and ideas to transform our world and really make the next decade a decade of transformation for the planet, all life on land and all life under the sea. And so, looking at the new economy, which is one of the themes in the Economy of Francesco, it's looking at solutions that are evidence based, that are tested out in real economic markets, in communities, in cities that have a direct relationship with the problem that they're solving. So if you pair some of the world's leading economists with young entrepreneurs who are already in a coastal city, whether it's on the coast of the big island of Hawaii, or it's a person who is on the coast in Mozambique, or around Southeast Asia, coast of Japan, coast of India, you find people that have intimate knowledge of the fishing situation or the scuba diving situation, whatever economy is on the ground directly affecting their community, and you pair them with individuals who have worked at the World Bank or who have worked in sectors really all across the planet to think about not just measuring a country's GDP. If we develop a new metric that places value on species' lives, places value on health and the biodiversity of marine ecosystems, it's a way to really, really increase value where people have not seen it before, especially for island nations that are small in land mass, but incredibly rich with resources in the oceans.
I think you are right from the context that GDP is well and good, but I think we have moved enough, and now we need a new economic thinking, new economic indice probably, where planet first is going to be the approach. Where we put that planet and people at the front of the thing, and not necessarily growth and profit at the top of it, right? So I totally agree with you on that front. Laura, at this point, before I go to Savitri for her questions, how does the future look like to you? Because we have to achieve these goals by 2030. We are pretty off track as per the recent UN discussions. And, how do we go there? What do we have to do?
Creating hope for the future is part of my mission and really something that everyone can contribute to. I think there's a long way to go, a tremendous amount of work to do this decade, but always remember that human solutions to these great problems, it takes all of us. Really, if we can collaborate, if we can implement solutions that might be simple on the face, these don't always have to be exclusive and $1 billion industry. In fact, what we saw with the oil spill in Mauritius was a perfect example of using natural resources. It was the material that was left over after the sugar cane was harvested to corral and control the oil spill, to soak it up and to take it out of the water before it caused further damage. I think a lot of our solutions can be found in nature, and it's time to implement them.
Well, I have a young voice with me, and Savitri is joining from Colombo, and she is a young professional and also member of our global volunteer community. Savitri has a couple of questions for you, Laura. So, Savitri, please introduce yourself and ask your questions.
Yeah. Hello once again, ma'am, and I'm honored to talk to you and thank you for your insights today. I'm very excited to talk to a female activist and an expert who are out there making the world better for everyone else. So I'm Savitri Sellapirmage. I'm from Sri Lanka, and I'm actually a researcher and an international relations expert, and then an environmental a well-being advocate too. So my goal is to start my own line of production in eco-friendly products. So I'm working as a research intern at National Security Think Tank attached to Ministry of Defense Sri Lanka. And on the side, I'm working towards my own goals of starting a production line. So that's about me. And I have a couple of questions to ask you, ma'am. And once again, I'm very honored to talk to a female activist. And my question also goes in line with that. So, women in climate action have become an indispensable force today in the world. As leaders of nations, organizations, and even as single individuals, many women have come to the forefront, being champions of environmental well being. Jane Goodall, Jacinda Ardern, some of the women who have taken the lead in making the natural environment a better place through their policy options, through their research, and so on. So, what is your opinion on the role of women in environmental activism and environmental well-being promotion?
Thank you, Savitri, for this question. It's really the perfect question at this moment in time. In the United States, a lot of people from a lot of different sectors are really thinking about the legacy of Justice Ginsburg, who was on the US Supreme Court. Incredible women who did a lot for women's rights and really changed the way that entrepreneurs can live in the world in many cities, many communities today. There's a quote that she said that really, really sums this up. And it was to be a change maker in the world. Do it in a way that you bring other people along on your journey. It's important to really grow a movement, to make change, to do something within your community. You have to start with an idea that galvanizes the hearts and minds of people all around you in many, many different sectors. And with other incredible female leaders like Jane Goodall, she started her work with chimpanzees at the age of 26. And now she is an octogenarian, and her passion is the same, if not more, as when she started her career as a conservationist in her 20s. And that's a remarkable legacy, to really find something that can sustain you throughout your whole lifetime, to really grow as an expert, and then to share your knowledge and wisdom and incredible experiences. Jane Goodall, Justice Ginsburg really had stories that showed how tremendous change can happen, does happen in one person's lifetime. And their legacy is that they've affected so many people across the planet.
Yeah, it's really inspirational how these women have fought towards making the world a better place through their research, through committing their whole life. It's actually inspiring to a lot of young people, including myself, to engage in activism and then hopefully to do some change in the world. So my next question is, so we talk about creating change and activism and then doing something better towards the world, that we're giving something back to the world that we live in. So we have a relationship that we have created with the nature. So each being creates its own version of relationship with the nature. When it comes to humans, it tends to be a bit complicated with a mixture of facets of social life, and it becomes complicated with the lives that humans lead. How important it is to create a positive relationship with nature. How can each of us individually do our parts towards improving life on land, life on the sea? Can you recommend 3 action points that youth like me can follow in growing a positive relationship with the nature that will eventually make the world we live in a better place? 3 action points.
Great. So, first action point is to spend as much time in nature as possible. You will see things, you will learn things that other people never experience just being cooped up in a building, in their house, inside. Number two, and I think it affects people even working in businesses that might not directly have access to the oceans. Whatever your job is, really think about the whole supply chain, what it took to get the paper into the office, what it took to get the food into the office, and look for things that are local rather than buying an orange that might come from halfway around the world. Really, really pick your produce from what is in season and is growing, growing as close to your home, as close to your office as possible. And then number three is to always be reading. Read about other cities. Travel when it's safe, when it's possible, when it can be done in a sustainable way, to get to know people, to really, really see other communities outside of your own. If you live in the desert, the only way to experience the ocean is to go to the coast of any nation and really, really interact with the natural world to appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Savitri, for your questions, and thank you, Laura, for sharing such beautiful insights with us today. I have a tough job always. I say that to sum up after such an insightful session as a host is it's very difficult, but I'll try my best. As you rightfully said, that for a more sustainable planet, we must unite all generations for action. We must change our behavior of consumption. We must instill curiosity in young people so that they can learn and grow with the change and make the change later on. For every one of us, probably sustainability begins at home. And for creating that hope, for the future and to be the change maker, we must bring other people along the way. On that note, we have almost reached towards the end of our conversation. Before I conclude, I have one last question for you, Laura. And that is, if you have to sum up your vision for a better world in one sentence, what would that be?
Protect all life on the planet, and in doing so, you protect your own future.
Wow, on that very, very hopeful, thoughtful, and protective note, everyone who is joining in and listening in, thank you so much for being with us. For a world where no one is left behind, it has never been clearer that all of us have a role to play in order to bring about change. Whoever you are, no matter where you come from, every one of us can make a difference. Every action truly counts. Get involved. Attend the SDG Action Conclave 2020, participate in the SDG quiz, help raise awareness about the goals, and connect with the global community of passionate volunteers. This Global Goals Week, let us all come together to spread the knowledge about people, planet, and our sustainable development goals. Thank you once again all for joining us. Follow us on Instagram at Youth Forum India for all the updates. And don't forget to join our next session. Laura, once again, thank you so much for your time and for your insightful session.
Thank you so much. Wonderful having a conversation with both of you today.